Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Well, might not be good morning where you are. As Sam Wicker says, happy time zone, I guess, is more appropriate. Sako is currently in a sprint on a Tuesday morning, and I'm going to go ahead and let her 13-ish minutes be my Focus Fox time frame. So let's Focus Fox and let's do it. Who saved who? Us or our characters? Let's get started. Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Sitting Down with Soul Writer. My name is Jenna O'Malley. I am your soul writer, author of sci-fi fantasy with dashes of romance and nerdy references. Alongside the raw stories my characters weave throughout time, I assist other writers in getting back to their purely creative phoenix mode through my editing and coaching processes. More about that in other videos and in description down below. But today I invite you to consider the answer to one question along with me. Do we save our characters or do they save us? Now, some people don't believe in this. If it doesn't write to market, if it no personal bleed in my writing, that's fine. I'm not trying to be all like the teacher from Charlie Brown and wah and yuck your yum, but that's not the side of the coin we're looking at today. Okay? We are, but not in a negative way. Not in a you shouldn't talk about it, you shouldn't do it way. If you need to do it as a writer and that's where your muse lives, so be it. Tanya, somebody I've been following around the Instagrams and the YouTubes as of late, go ahead and check description below for the links, said something recently that really stuck with me. Your muse is just the grown-up version of your inner child. So if my muse is still that kid who loves anime and video games and whatnot, it's totally okay that those things come out in my books. It's why if you like The Legend of Zelda, if you like Sailor Moon, if you like Gundam Wing, you probably will find something in one of my books somewhere that appeals to you. There's a lot of tropes, a lot of themes, a lot of stereotypes, right? So that's a lot of personal bleed. I'm not necessarily an author who at current knows how to, up to this point, write to market, unless it's fantasy romance or space opera, because I know technically if I call it sci-fi romance, I'll get in trouble and get yawked at. But there's a lot of sci-fi in my space opera, put it that way. And it's just, how much of what we enjoy as writers bleeds into what we create as characters applies, for all the good and for all the bad. It definitely determines that I write fantasy romance instead of, at this point, true crime. I don't ever foresee myself going that way, but who knows what will happen in the future, right? Be it as it may. Sometimes when we start writing longer series and start writing around and with certain characters, regardless of whether or not they're primary or secondary, we can sometimes really get into their heads. A commercially published author that I've been reading since, good gosh, 2005, senior year of high school, was when I first started reading J.R. Ward's The Black Dagger Brotherhood. You see some interests from there going into my works, do you? And she always said about one of her characters that they don't get along, and being in each other's heads for too long is almost painful. I think Vicious's book is the longest book she's written in the first 10 books of the core series, mind you. I could be wrong, but it feels like it. They spent a lot of painful time together to give us that book. And I realized recently when I made my plot wall videos and whatnot a little while ago that there's one character who's kind of to blame for everything, and he keeps popping up. I mean, I have my Vicious. I have a character I don't get along with so great. His name is Bjorn. We don't like being in each other's heads too long because his wolf and my dolphin don't get along and the dolphin wins in this case. Normally you would think it's the wolf. It's the dolphin who wins in this case. But he's not my vicious. Frey is my vicious. Writing for Frey at first was painful. Painful. I didn't know why. I mean, literally, he's the person that brings Ian to the Alliance and is kind of the catalyst as to why book 1 even starts in the first place. He goes on to get his own book, and I thought book 3 was going to be the last. I thought I was going to write a sandbox trilogy and be done, but no. Sometimes your characters do things and don't tell you. Sometimes your characters leave you surprised, no matter how much you yourself plot, plan, research, brainstorm, outline, or don't. Right? You know which side of that coin you live on and how comfortable you are with your success with it, right? And no judgment, just fill in the gap to that as you need. And the more I started looking at that plot wall, the more I realized how Frey shows up in a lot of places. He shows up in Vitae Elangica. In book 2, his bar shows up. Lee doesn't show up. He does. He's in Vitae Elangica 1, but just as a passing by background character who really doesn't even get more than a line. And I was like, oh my gosh. Plus, he's getting his own book to explain what happened during book 3 when he was gone for, as he says, 6 weeks but 3 years, because it was 6 weeks in this realm, but the realm he was dropped in, it was 3 years. That's how much slower time moves there. And then I started adding up how much of myself is and is not Frey versus other characters. Yes, we all have something we resonate with most of our characters, for those of us who do feel this line of thought, and even for those of us who write to market or who have an established pattern of not necessarily vibing with all of your characters. Kind of like an actor, 1 or 2 always stands out when you're done at the end of several years of creation with your process, right? I mean, I'm sure if you were to walk up to any actor today and say, who's your number 1 favorite character you've ever played? They would be like, wait a minute, I have a list, let me think. Or they're like a trained rehearsed answer, just like, I know I have to pick one and I'm just going to pick one by default. We're the same way with our characters. And how much of that for some of us is us not just resonating with them, but maybe picking a past version of ourselves, reincarnation included, not included, or just a younger version of yourself right now, included, not included. And the more I thought about it, I was like, oh my God, Frey is what I could have become with some of his issues much earlier in life. I could have been orphaned much sooner in life. I could have ended up in the foster care system. I mean, this is just the whole random things life could have dealt me that would have basically me ended up being him. So, how much of what we write is for us to heal? How much of what our characters say, do, don't do, hold back on, fret about, fight over, love over, throw parties over, cause a ballroom blitz over if you're my characters, pun to the song of the same name intended. How much are you healing yourself while writing characters who are also healing? And by reading what those characters say, do, and so on, are you healing your readers too, without even realizing it? If you did that unintentionally, kudos to you. If you did it intentionally, kudos to you. Either way, you're doing an amazing job, and I encourage you to double down on the intention one way or the other, because you deserve it for creating a world that is a safe space for others. Thank you for joining me. If you want to go ahead and continue on and have conversations like this, I will be running my live writing sprints on weekends, Friday and Saturday nights. There may be a couple of nights where I will be missing them in the future. So please either subscribe to my newsletter, link below, or go ahead and check out my community tab with a subscription to the channel. So thank you very much for being here. Take care of yourself. Stop believing the lies other people tell you. I know you're worth it. Soul Writer out.